Doesn't feel like you're really having this lazy afternoon feel. All right. So again, this is the first of many events that KMC Solutions is going to bring you. So again, as we are celebrating Women's Month for March, we're bringing you a talk this afternoon is titled "Who Run the World?" So we all agree that this world is really run by amazing women. So for this afternoon, we brought to you some of our top picks to talk about very interesting topics for you this afternoon. So today we are celebrating all modern Filipinas who exemplify unparalleled passion, tenacity, and excellence in their respective industries. So they'll be telling us stories of resilience, of overcoming pressure, rejection, and challenges that inspire great measures even in the face of adversity. So I'm really happy to see a lot of women this afternoon, and I know we fought hard to be where we are, including myself. Everyone has fought hard to be where we are in our careers. And now, to formally open this afternoon's conversations, may we invite attorney Amanda Carpo, KMC Solutions co-founder and chief legal counsel. She's also a triathlete and definitely a certified hashtag goals and overall hashtag alpha woman. So let's give her a round of applause for our brief program introduction.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'd like to welcome you to KMC Solutions formally. I'd like to thank my partners for being men, so that I get to be the one to speak today. This month we're celebrating Women's Month, and I'd like to introduce myself to you as a mother, a wife, a daughter, and a sister, a co-founder, and a woman. These days it's a good time to be a woman. It's our time now. I never grew up thinking that it was a man's world. I am the third of 5 girls, so I grew up in an all-girl environment in the home. I went to an all-girls school, and I grew up in a family where, unfortunately, my grandfather passed away at a very early age, so the head of our family was a matriarch. So in my world, it was never a man's world or a woman's world, it was just, this is how it is. And I think that gave me a very unique perspective coming into the workplace, pursuing my career, and finding my place in the world, so to speak. So all that led to KMC Solutions, where we are today. I'd like to give you a brief introduction about the company. We founded it, I think it was eight years ago. And it is the largest flexible office space provider in the Philippines. We have 38,000 square meters of office space, where we house 6,800 seats or 6,800 employees. We started very, very small. And I'm very proud to be part of this very diverse and fast-growing company. For me, what it means to be part of this company or part of the founders is that I work with 2 men, my partners, and I guess in a way I'm there to bring balance to the force. For me, what that means sometimes is having a seat at the table, having a voice is important. But my partners have never made me feel that I'm a woman. They've always asked for my opinion. They've always respected my position and given me every opportunity to kind of like sink my teeth into the work that we do. And today we're celebrating all women who are in the business landscape, all of you who have the privilege of being in the business landscape. And we decided to invite these women leaders to the event because we need to get to know women in the workplace. We need to get familiar with the idea. We need to embrace the idea. We need to celebrate the idea of women being in the workplace and understand the different roles that they can play. It's not just we're not one-trick ponies. We're in every aspect of the workforce. So and that's an important idea to sort of initiate. So it's not so I'd like to so today we're planting seeds, so to speak. So for without further ado, I think we're going to introduce the speakers next. And I'd like to thank them for coming in today and sharing their experiences as women in the workplace.
Thank you so much, attorney. All right, thank you so much. So, she is definitely one of our what we call hashtag alpha women in our lives. So, our next hashtag alpha women or woman has long demonstrated history in the entertainment industry. She's well versed in film planning and distribution. She spent the early days of her career as a marketing manager for Solar Entertainment Corporation and Viva Entertainment. And eventually, she moved to SM Lifestyle Entertainment as their AVP and business unit head for cinema, exhibition, and digital media. Oh, sorry. Apologies for that. It was the wrong cue card. Sorry, our next speaker, our first speaker is a multimedia storyteller whose work has appeared on TV, print, radio, and online. She's among the pioneers of content marketing in the Philippines and was section editor of Brand Wrap of Rappler.com's award-winning section for sponsored content. She's currently an editor-at-large and a digital marketing consultant for a tech startup based in Australia. So let us all give a warm round of applause to Ms. Krista Garcia.
It's okay. Hi everyone. Good afternoon. So just to be clear, I'm going to reintroduce myself. My name is Krista. So as mentioned by the host, I was part of Rappler and I was part of the team that built Brand Wrap back in 2013 in the days when I think very few brands or startups even knew what content marketing was. They thought it was a bad thing to have a paid article or something in media, but now we see everyone doing it. But I'm also here to talk about my capacity with what I've been doing recently, which is digital marketing consultancy for an Australian startup. So it's a bit of outsourcing work. And to segue to what we're going to be doing this afternoon, I think it's great that KFC and Echo Channels and everyone is doing this kind of activity to celebrate Women's Month. And it's really great that we're doing it in a space like KMC, which is filled with really strong, amazing women. And we can see that there are lots of opportunities for women to thrive and really have really interesting careers, not just in media, as what I'm doing, but even in tech companies, even in outsourcing companies locally and around the world. So, sorry, what happened? Okay, I just have to cycle back because I think they flashed the end of my presentation by mistake. Anyway, so I was invited here to talk about writing great stories. And later on, I'm going to explain why the title of my presentation is like that, telling great stories. So I was asked by ICAD to talk about what does it take to be a female writer here in the Philippines. And I think I'm going to start talking about the half of that part first. So I'm going to talk about what it takes to be a writer in the Philippines first. So when I tell people that I am a writer, or when I tell them that I do online content, I think what most people would think of, like the visual image that they would reach in their head when they look at this, is something like this, that I spend all of my day in coffee shops staring away at the window, drinking my coffee, and maybe typing out paragraphs, words on my laptop. And when I tell them that I also do digital remote content, meaning I can work quote unquote anywhere, or that I can work even if I'm on vacation, I think there's this prevailing image that you can just bring your laptop right on the beach, something like that. So I've gotten that, but actually in reality, remote writing work is very far from this. It's not glam at all, and it's not really just staring away and thinking of words away into space and thinking of words to write. So I hope you can read this. This is just a brief list of what writing actually is as a job. So it's a verb, but it's actually, as a job, it's actually made up of very many other verbs. So writing, at least in the context of media and online content, would also involve lots of research. So both online and offline. So actually going to sources, maybe sometimes even going to libraries or public places to look for info to verify facts. Lots of interviews, calling people, getting sources, statistics, verifying ideas, getting tips and all of that. Shooting, so sometimes writing would involve writing for video, which is what I've done a lot of as well. So there would be actually attending shoots that last 18, 24, 36 hours. And then production, so everything that goes into preparing before what you shoot. So there will be pre-prod meetings, pitching an idea, creating a script, all of that. And then as a writer, you might also be asked to style whatever you're writing or creating for. You would be asked to do production design if you don't have a production designer and your team has a limited budget. And then there's pitching, video editing. You would be asked to do out-of-town coverages. And on top of all of that, there's revising and revising and revising and revising. So if there's anyone here who is a writer, I'm sure you're very familiar with the grind of how infinite revisions might sometimes take. Even if you're happy with your output, if your client doesn't think it's perfect yet, you have to keep working until you get it right. So writing, it's taken me to very extreme locations. So for example, I had to go to Nepal to cover a story about Romy Garduse for a brand. And then I've had to go like way under the ground to a cave to cover, like to test a watch and write about what I found inside that cave and so on. But those are outliers. Those are like special moments. Most of the time, it's really just crying in front of my laptop because, oh my God, I have to revise again. So sometimes actual writing is just 20% of the job. Going back to the picture of actually creating output, and even if you actually create the output, the finished product, you'll only end up using like partial or 20% of what you make on the job. So writing as a job is not just about writing. I think that's what we're trying to say here. The real job is not to write as a writer. The real job is to tell a great story. The real job of a writer is not to sit in front of a laptop and to think of words, think of grammar, think of headlines, all of that. Although those are important. Your job is to think of what is the great story that I can create out of what I observed, what I heard, what I listened to. So for example, just to talk, so I wanted to bring it to something similar to what writers outside of media would be doing, which would be writing for brands. So for example, the brief is to write about an insurance product or to write about stocks or bonds. Something very technical. What would be your great story about an insurance product? What would be your great story about a mutual fund product? Or what would be a story about an investment portfolio? Or for example, what if the brief is about engine oil and you happen to be someone who doesn't know how to drive or hasn't even understood what goes on under the hood of the car? What are you going to write about? What would be your great story between these two things? So for example, for a product like insurance, aside from writing about how you can understand the greens or the reds or talk about interest rates, maybe you can write a story about why it's important to protect your wealth so that you can provide for your loved ones, or why it's important for you to secure your future now, because to secure your future so that you can enjoy the present, something like that. And then if you're writing about engine oil and you're not familiar with car terms and stuff like that, so you're gonna research about the features, the benefits, but maybe you can look at the backstory of who invented that product, and then you can discover that actually that product was invented by a very resourceful Filipino who questioned the status quo in the Western oil company that he was working with, and then said, hey, I can make something better and offer it for a lower price. So it becomes a great story of Filipino ingenuity and resourcefulness, basically. So another thing that I want to talk about is how being a writer is actually redefining your perspective. So working with brands or writing about what you think you know, the hero of that great story you're writing about is not really you, even if you're writing in first person. It's not your client. It's not what the client might think about. It's actually your audience. So the greatest stories, whether it's a news story or whether it's a brand video, or maybe even if it's just a simple copy that will appear at the bottom of a client website, it should be about your audience. What's in it for them? What will make it relevant for them? Why does what you're talking about help me survive in crime? So writing is also about never falling in love with your first idea. So most of the time, first ideas will suck. And there will be times when your great idea will be great, but there will always be an opportunity to make a great idea even better. So I think as a writer, you have to be very humble and very vigilant and always questioning, how can I make this better? You cannot be satisfied with what you come up with, and you can't be satisfied with what you think of right off the bat. You always have to question, how can I collaborate with others to make this idea better? Or how can I research more, ask more questions to probe deeper into the story that I'm writing? And this applies not only to news, but even any kind of copy you're working on. As I said, like video or what else? Even reports, I think, always need great stories, or even ad copies, or even taglines, even social media posts, right? So, yeah, and then like love, it isn't magic. So it really takes hard work. So as a writer, I think what it takes to be a writer in the Philippines, wherein the industry is so varied and writers can be found anywhere, not just in media, but even in tech companies, in banks, in every kind of industry basically needs a writer today. And I think for a writer to thrive and lead in any industry, you have to be a sponge. So writers are not expected to be experts in the subject matter right off the bat, but they have to convincingly sound like one to sell the product and to tell a great story. So as a sponge, a good writer would always be observing, listening, researching, asking the right questions, and then taking note of everything and basically experiencing as much as they can in order to figure out what the great story will be. So writing is not writing, typing, composing, all of that. It's a mixture of all of these things, learning, observing, and then figuring out what a great story is. So moving on to the second part. So we're actually gonna talk here about what it takes to be a female writer. So I've talked about what I think being a writer like in the modern tech-driven setup is like, right? So I think in the Philippines, so these are some of my role models. If you don't know them, so my two former bosses are managing editor Glenda Gloria and our executive editor Maria Ressa, and Summit's previous former EIC Pauline Juan, and then Yaka Gonzalez. So if you look at the scene, the media industry, there's actually no shortage of very powerful, empowered women leading the media field. And in fact, in our former newsroom in Rappler, all of our bosses were women. So it was actually a very interesting setup. So inside our world before, you wouldn't feel that women were not empowered. So it was really women rara there, even until now, of course. And then outside of our world, of course, you see so many glamorous, smart women leading and telling great stories in media that combine both styles like Pauline and Yaka. So actually, interestingly here in the Philippines, women, journalism or media is one of the 12 or few industries that are interestingly dominated by women in terms of education, position, and numbers in companies. So if you want me to read aloud what are the other industries dominated by women, it's for free only. So there's travel, tourism, grooming and beauty and fitness, jewelry, gemology, healthcare, biotech, textile and garment, agricultural, wood, fiber paper, and then property and real estate, and then journalism. So these are some of the key industries that where women actually are on top, literally or figuratively. But so that's the top, that's the perspective. But zooming in on the media field in particular, even though there are a lot of women in leadership positions, we still need more female writers in specific industries. So, for example, there are a lot of women in news, in lifestyle and fashion, but we actually need more writers in other fields like technology, sports writing, finance writing, as I mentioned earlier, even business writing. And I want to focus on technology, finance, and business because I think in the global sphere, in the outsourcing industry, these three industries are really looking for strong, skilled female writers and leaders to, promote brands, talk about these topics exhaustively. And I think there's no excuse for women to shy away from writing these topics. I think women can be just as credible and even more substantial than men in writing about sports, for instance, or writing about stock tips, or writing about how to put up your own business. And the other reason about why women need to be writing more in these industries is that so we can feature more women who are excelling in these fields as well. So anecdotally, I don't have the statistics right now, but anecdotally, I think, for example, sports. All the narratives right now about sports are about, for example, basketball players. When you talk about MVPs, when you talk about male basketball players, for example, you talk about their moves, their play on and off court like that. But when you profile a female athlete, for example, a volleyball player, they're always dressed up. They're talking about how they maintain their diet, or for example, what they wore on days off and stuff like that. So a lot of things really need to be shifted in how things are being covered in these industries, and more women writing about in these fields will definitely help with that. And then on top of creating more women, or putting more women in those space, I think we also need more women in the media and the writing space to talk about the issues that we're still experiencing in the society today. So the Philippines right now in the World Economic Forum's Gender Gap Report, we're actually in the top 10 of the countries in the world that are leading in terms of gender equality. So that's global. We're among the top 10 with the narrowest gender gap. So it means that in terms of education, positions in companies, and pay gap, statistically, women have it good compared to like other countries in the Southeast Asian region. But behind that statistic, behind the fact that there are women here who are empowered, educated, leading, there are still a lot of existing issues in society that we have to fight. So for example, stereotypes about women, which still persist at home and in the workplace. Addressing women's unpaid burden, or how women are required to work full-time jobs but also be fully employed at home and take care of all domestic duties like cooking, taking care of the kids, or doing the laundry, and then not getting compensated or incentivized for that. And then there's also still a lot of stories of misogyny and bullying. We see some movements about this with Me Too and everything. Pay gap. So there is, although women although you might not notice it, or that you might feel that women receive equal pay compared to men, actually, in the gender gap index, we slid down to number 10 from a number 7 before because there was a widening pay gap between men and women. And then even issues that women in various stages of life face, like being judged as a parent or smart shaming. So these are issues that real women face in reality every day, but we don't hear a lot of stories about them in the media streets. So we need more women writers to talk about these issues. And I think you don't need to be in media to be telling these kinds of stories. You don't need to be in media to address these stereotypes or to lead in these kinds of industries. Because writing is, as an industry, it cuts across every other industry. Every industry needs a writer. And even in my case, when I was doing branded content, so for example, I would write for a telco company, a juice company, a shampoo company. So when we would get the brief, we always need a very conscious effort to insert a story about women where applicable. So for example, writing for a telco company, we featured an OFW who is actually leading a group of men on a very big ship. And then for a juice company, instead of just talking about why make juice for your kids, we talked about how parents should deal with parent judging, parent shaming. And then, so one of my first projects before for Rappler was to work with Pantene for their award-winning Whip campaign, where we questioned stereotypes and labels against women, and we did a whole campaign with that. So even if it was grants, and even if the brief wasn't to talk about stereotypes, we were very conscious about finding ways to insert women's issues into that. And I think that should be a challenge for every woman who is writing and creating copy on the screen. So I'm just going to leave everyone with 3 questions basically. So are we writing enough diverse, empowering, and brave stories about women? Not just in media, but in other industries as well. So are we focusing on what women can do in these fields? And are we focusing on what women should be doing in these fields as well? And then, not just writing stories, are we telling enough diverse, empowering, and brave stories about women? Because as I said, to be a writer is not just, to come up with an article or an ad copy. Writing is also about pitching a marketing strategy. Writing is also about pitching what a CSR campaign could be. Writing is also about creating a report that would increase knowledge about a certain niche in your industry. So are we finding ways to insert women into this picture? So I think my challenge to writers and who will be working in different fields, whether it's startups or executives, will be, what will be your story? And if you're a woman, it has to be something that resonates with what women need to be and how we should lift their place in the industry today. That's it. That's very. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. All right, so before you go, I guess one of the few things, well, personally, I want to find out is because I completely understand, well, not completely, because again, I am not a woman, but I understand how writing is. So, in your experience, probably, when do you feel most triumphant as a woman in your industry? In terms of what you do, or daily, or something, an anecdote that really made you feel really empowered based on your experiences.
Okay. So I think with women, so I really feel empowered when we talk about a female issue without abandon or without the so-called jahe or worry that people might think this is not an important issue. So for example, I want to talk about the example of parent judging. So we came up with that idea because we found parents, like mothers, who were afraid to post how they were taking care of their kids on social media. Because for example, if they post a photo of their kid eating chocolate, all the other mommies or daddies will swarm in and say, hey, you shouldn't feed your kids chocolate and that's bad, you're bad. Like, it equates to being a bad mom. And it's a very real concern, and it makes the mom feel disempowered. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, it wasn't being talked about enough. So we felt like when we talked about an issue and influencers started responding positively to it, mm-hmm. and it actually trended, and people said, yeah, I'm going through this is great that we're talking about it. I think that was a victory for me. And it showed how important it is to observe, mm-hmm. like look at what the real little issues are, and then find a way to turn that into a story for them.
All right. Thank you so much, Krista. Let's give her another good round of applause.